So, gonna do another knife review. So, took my my Google money, my AdSense money from the channel, was deposited into my account yesterday, and I said, you know what? I'm going to treat yourself. That's what I said to myself. So I went over to the fine folks at Old Town Cutlery over in Cumming, Georgia. I get nothing from them. I just give them a plug because they're nice folks. It's nice to be able to go to a nice local mom and pop. They do their own custom knife making there. They have some forged and fire guys that work out of there. They give classes, sell materials, and then they carry everything from like the nicer LionSteels, ProTech, Boker, down to Case, and they actually had some really nice Great Eastern cutlery knives in today. I may go back this weekend and get a Stockman from them. I may buy it online tonight, actually. I'm kind of regretting not getting it while I was there. But they had a few cool ones there. But anyway, one of my favorite brands is MKM LionSteel. If you remember, I did a video the other day about alternatives to the Sebenzas. You know, I've got the clones. I've got the 910 from Land, which is, you know, it's a nice little knife. It's not a premium knife. I mean, it's okay. I've got one that's inspired by them from another Citavian or something like that. Another Chinese brand that uses G10 ball bearings, axis lock, and kind of an interesting grind, but really nice. I mean, beautiful, really nice blade play because there's bearings. There's no wiggle, no wobble, rocking, anything like that. So, you know, these are nice. They're nice knives, but they're not, you know, expensive knives. So I was looking for different alternatives and things to getting a Sebenza. And, you know, one that I do carry a good bit is, and it's a little Sebenza-ish. I mean, it's, you know, it's in that sort of, you know, size and shape. It's a little different, but someone there that designed this clearly has seen a Sebenza at some point in their career. Let's just leave it at that. But this one's made by Riat for a company called the James brand. It's VG10 steel. Really, you know, it's nice. It's washers, though. It would have been nice if it had been bearings, but it has broken in nicely, so the blade has some nice, sweet action to it. Very easy to open with the thumb stud. But I also like LionSteels. I've traded and sold some of those off. The ones that I still have, I've got 2 LionSteel slip joints, but these are going to, I didn't bother bringing them out just because we're talking about, you know, more larger tactical folding or, you know, whatever kind of knives. And so I've got Steel Will Gecko, which is made by MKM in Italy. Wonderful, wonderful knife. Not cheap. I think these are closer to 200 nowadays. I've got the Clap, which is a Bob Terzola. He's kind of the godfather of tactical folding knives, designers. And so I went and got this MKM. So let's open it together, shall we? All right, comes in a nice little box. Little belt pouch, I guess. Looks like inside of the pouch, we've got the knife. We've got the little tool to tighten a little glass breaker, which is basically also a screw. And you can replace it if you don't want to have the glass breaker there. You can replace it with that screw, which is kind of cool. And it comes with the instructions and tells you, you know, be careful, don't cut yourself and whatever. So let's put all that away on the side for a minute. And so which is this model? This is called the Maximo. Like this a lot, been looking at it for a little while. Bowler M390 steel, very strong detent. Nice smooth action. I believe it's phosphor bronze washers. Not sure why they haven't made the switch to bearings and stuff, but they haven't. So you can get this in a couple configurations. First, they have a couple different colors, coated, non-coated. I got the one with Damascus with Micarta on one side, and this side on the frame lock is titanium. It's got the same pattern, got the grenade, old style grenade, frag grenade type of thing on there. So we've got that. That is titanium, really nice. You know, and they do a great job. They use great steels. They've got modern designs, but they use old style craftsmanship and really good attention to detail. This one is technically a flipper. It takes a little bit more of a pronounced, it doesn't fly open quite as quickly as this one does. This one's a little longer and it's a lighter blade, but it just snaps. What I've noticed on these knives is that they tend to tune them to not be these wicked fast bang, you know, pop out. Kind of like if you're into OTFs and you see the Microtechs are like, bam, the blades come out. But the Guardian Tacticals are a lot slower, but they're nice. They're like smoother. There's not as much clacking. To me, it seems a little more classy, a little more elegant, a little more gentlemanly, while still being, you know, fully working. But these, something like this, when you use the flipper, it's just snick. It's not wham. So when you're firing one of these, you know, really, it's more of a flick, or not, you're not flicking it, but it's more of a, you know, bang. That one actually is kind of slowed down a little bit. Has to do with the placement and the detent and all that kind of stuff. But in any case, the weight on this is fairly light. God, I do these things, I just wing it with no show prep. So I never have the freaking stats on it. So while we're talking here, MKM Maximo. Let's see what the stats on this are. So, go to Blade HQ. They always got good stats right there. And let's pull it up. And it looks like, so we got the N390 steel. The blade length is 3.23, overall of 7.76. Blade width is 1.07 inches. Blade thickness is 0.16. Fairly beefy little blade. It is a drop point stone wash. Handle thickness is 1/2 inch at the widest. Overall weight 4.23. So for a knife that's, you know, a pretty good size with a lot of metal on it, it's fairly light. You're not going to mistake it for a bug out anytime soon. But honestly, when you look at this clap here, the clap feels a little bit lighter, or I'm sorry, about the same. I almost feel no difference. So if this one is 4.23, what is the clap? Let's see. The clap is and this is the titanium and Micarta version. We are talking 3.88 ounces. So we're talking about 1/3 of an ounce. I mean, it's under 1/2 ounce difference. So it's really not that much, but it's a considerably bigger knife. It's a little thinner. The action is pretty sweet. That's a good bit bigger. So between it being G10 on this side and titanium, this has titanium and Micarta. I'm not sure why it's thicker. Maybe these are titanium and those liners are probably steel, which is here, doesn't have that. This is lightened. I don't know if you can see up in there, but there's machining taken out of there to lighten that up a little bit. So it's a good size knife without being very heavy. I'll say that the action between the two, well, that's a nice snick. That's the best way I could describe it. Instead of a clack, instead of a bang, it's a snick. I would say the action's actually faster when you use the thumb studs. And so this is one of those things where I'm not sure why they do both. You know, this one is either open it by grabbing the finger grooves or you flip it. Same thing here. You know, technically, yes, you can flick it with just using the lock because the blades swing so freely. But it's a thumb stud. This is a thumb stud. That's a thumb stud. That's a thumb stud. I don't understand why knife makers give you multiple forms of deployment. Here I've got my Hogue, you know, the SIG K320. And that one just gives you the Spyderco style, you know, thumb hole to flick it open. Again, on this one, you can do the same thing because these are all broken in really nice. So really nice, sweet action. But anyway, what do I like about it? I love that I love the swedge. I love the way that MKM does that. The jimping is there. It gives you some traction. It's not overly aggressive. It doesn't grip quite as much as this one does. That's also got the finger choil, which makes that nice. You know, this one has more aggressive jimping and it's ramped instead of being flat. So that gives you more traction automatically. Same here. You know, these are the ones that are kind of more based off the Sebenza. This one, same thing. It's got deeper traction and it's slightly ramped. So this one is more out here. You don't really have a finger choil. I mean, you can choke up a little bit on that and put your finger on that as a rest. It is at the right angle. You would want to be careful about sliding up because you will go up onto that blade. And this blade is a flat grind, goes up most of the way. Really nice swedge. I love the attention to detail that MKM and LionSteel and their other subsidiaries do. Everything about this, I mean, when you look at, let it zoom in, I mean, it's really well crafted and machined. Every edge is smooth. There's no nicks. There's no sharp edges. Everything is perfectly chamfered. Everything is rounded. I mean, when you look at that, that is just beautifully, beautifully executed. The swedge, same thing. Now, the downside of that is if you had this in your pocket and you're in a camping situation, you're going to struggle to use that back edge as like a fire strike. You know, if you've got a striker tool or something like that and you want to start a fire. And that's where having, well, actually that one's pretty well beveled. That one's sharper, so you got that more 90-degree edge. It's not sharp. They've done a good job of cleaning that edge up, but you kind of need that hard edge to scrape and use it as a fire striker. MKM knives don't really lend themselves to that. The steel wheel gecko that's made by them, same thing. All those edges are radiused, nothing sharp on this. Same thing with this. This is a Torzuola design. I believe this one is too. So that's the other thing that these two share in common. Not just that they're both MKM, but they are both Rob Terzuola, I think is the way you pronounce his name. They're both his designs. But it's nice. The ergonomics are good. It fits in your hand. There is a little tiny bit of a hot spot. It depends on, well, see now I must have shifted my grip slightly. You can feel that point there. It doesn't really jam into you. It's not uncomfortable, but you know it's there. But it's not going to give you the same kind of comfort as a machined, you know, pocket clip will, which there are no rounded edges. It doesn't stick up in any way. You feel a little bit of something there, but you honestly don't feel that. Same thing with, no, that one feels more like this. They're very similar. So let's get these off of here. Let's class the joint up a little bit by getting rid of the cheap Chinese ones here. Not that I don't like Chinese knives, I actually like them. But in any case, so size comparison, if we were to compare it to the James brand, now that is the Carter XL, so that's the bigger one. You're almost dead on. Same size, almost exactly the same size, tiny bit smaller than the steel wheel gecko. And if we were to compare it to the Hogue, just a little bit smaller. So it's in that size package. It's definitely a little bit bigger than the clap. The clap I find is about as small as I want for this style knife because anything smaller and I'm not gripping it right. If I grip it so that my hand's not up here, then my knuckle's going into that corner there. So that's about as small as I want it. It's short this way, so you feel like you're trying to grip a pencil and it might want to twist in your hand if you were to try to use it for anything serious. And that's where having the knife that's more broad this way, it really does kind of lock your hand in. This one especially with the finger grooves and all the compound edges and stuff that you can get away with when you have a molded plastic handle, as opposed to having to machine something. You can get a lot more creative and a lot more, you know, at a cheaper cost when you have a knife like this. Ergonomically, this is just fantastic. This feels pretty damn good though. And that's a nice premium knife. And so to go back to the video I had the other day where we're talking about your, you know, what are your Sebenza alternatives? You know, yeah, you can get the cheap clone-ish, because there are differences on these. Go watch my other videos. Obviously, they don't use an axis lock, and there's different blade grinds and, you know, materials and things like that. They're really just following the lines and the shape. But, you know, if you want that kind of a knife, but you don't want to spend $500 for a Sebenza, but you don't want just the $30, you know, they're not gas station knives. These are actually decent quality, let's be clear. But, you know, you want something nicer than a $30 Amazon knife. Well, that's where you start getting into, I think, some really nice brands. You know, you get into your Spyderco's. This one by the James brand, they've got another one. Now, they have one that's like $600, but then you're up to the price of the Chris Reeve knife, in which case, just buy that. But you get into some of these LionSteels that are in that $200 range. This was $209, that was $245. This one's about $200. This was like $159 or $169 or something like that. So you're in that, let's just say $150 to $250 range. You can get a lot of knife for the money. I mean, you talk about N690CO, decent steel. VG10 is, decent steel, but then you got M390, which is a much better steel. I don't know what these things are going for, I think around 120 bucks. Probably S30V or something like that. But you can get, if you want that knife that fits in that Sebenza category, but you don't want to spend $400 or $500, but you want to spend more than $30, so at least you got a cool knife. You can not, have your friends bust your balls because, oh, you bought a Chinese knife. I think MKM and LionSteel and, other Hogues, there's a nice, Benchmades, there's a lot of really nice knives that are top-notch quality. I love the way this Micarta is, because this one's been used a little bit. It's starting to really take on like the oil of your skin and get that patina look and stuff like that. These are just really nice. And this is nice too. This is definitely one that I'm going to carry a lot. It's in that mid-range size. It's somewhat thin. It's a little thinner than that. It's definitely a little thinner than that. It's more on line with the Carter XL here. Pocket clip is not reversible, so this is right hand only. There's no channel cut here, plus if you were to flip it, it'd be facing this way, so you'd have to actually have a different clip. So this is right hand only, thumb studs on both sides, flipper, so it's ambidextrous, not ambidextrous. There's no such word as ambidextrous, it's just ambidextrous. It is ambidextrous in its deployment and things like that, but the pocket clip, unfortunately for you lefties, is not. But that seems to be a common thing. I don't know if that one's not reversible because that has an inset that goes into. This one is reversible. That one is reversible. So is that one. And this one can be put in 4 positions, tip up, tip down, left or right. So a lot of customization there for your carrying options. This one unfortunately is not, but I'm not a lefty, so I don't really care. But yeah, it does have the glass breaker. Don't know how useful that is. It's not really in the way, and it doesn't stick out so far like on the Microtex. And I know people say, what are you doing a reverse grip for? I don't know. If you just did because you're trying to stab into something for some reason, had to puncture a barrel or something, it doesn't stick out enough, and it's broad enough that if it works for the as a glass breaker, great. But it's not uncomfortable on your thumb. You could put a good amount of pressure on that, and it makes a little bit of an indentation, but it's not uncomfortable, which is actually rather nice. When you've got like one of your Microtex, like an Ultratech, you put your thumb up there and it's like, ugh. Now that might make it a better, compliance tool, if you will, where if you're trying to subdue someone or exert pressure and create a pressure point, it's gonna be a lot more effective because I could push on this and it's kind of like, it's a little uncomfortable, but it's not really doing anything to me. Whereas the Microtech is. I think this is better for my use is because it doesn't get in the way of the ergonomics. It doesn't protrude. But if you had to use it to pop a window, you could. Now it is at kind of a weird angle, so you'd probably use it that way so you could hit the glass, because otherwise you're trying to really bend your wrist, and most people's wrists only want to bend at a certain angle to get that into place. So you'd turn it around so you could hit it straight on. But yeah, I'm really digging this. I like the Micarta. I think I might have said G10 before. I meant Micarta. I like the Micarta. I like the titanium. The weight for the size is excellent. Action's good, although it's not that fast and impressive. It's just nice, snick, smooth, as opposed to whack, as opposed to clunk. So that's just their way of doing it. All of them seem to do that. Even this one. This is a lockback, but just a nice, smooth. That one's more of a thunk. The clap is going to be more of a snick. So very, very cool knife. I'm glad I got that. Less than half the price of the Sebenza. And I know you're going to say, well, the Chris Reeve is more cost. Yeah, but looking at how this knife is made, looking at the materials, looking at the execution, is that other knife, is a Sebenza really twice the knife of something like this? You can argue all day and say, well, yeah, it's going to blow the Chinese ones out of the water. But once you start getting into the $200 range, you can get a lot of knife for $200. You're into zero tolerance. You're into LionSteel. you're into the upper level Spyderco's. Like there's a lot of Benchmades. There's just a lot of good brands you can get in that price range. And so this one's definitely going to be in my rotation. Now, here's one thing I will say. That detent is strong. So it's not the fastest flick. It goes faster here, but you are having to put a bunch more pressure. I noticed if I was going to sit there on the couch and fidget with this, see how it's pushing that corner of my thumb in? That is actually starting to get uncomfortable. It takes a good bit of pressure before that detent pops, and you can see there, it's leaving an impression in my thumb. I got to kind of smush my thumb around to get it back to normal. But so there's that. I think that's probably the only thing I would really ding this on. Some people like to have it fly out from the flipper. I'm not a big, I don't care. I understand what they're going for. They want that more snick, smooth, a little more elegant, less utilitarian. So I'm fine with that. Then get rid of these. Do one or the other. You know, if you want to have a thumb stud, then make it a little bit less of a detent, because that is a really strong detent. And so you're having to really put pressure on your thumb to get that. And then when it does let go, it flies open really nice. But if you like to fidget a lot, you're going to be going, all right, I'm going to switch to the flipper now because give my thumb a rest. Whereas I could sit there on this and do this all day. It's a light detent. It's a light action. Same thing here. I'm not having anywhere near that level of discomfort. Same goes for the Chinese ones. Boom, flies open. Boom, flies open. Very little pressure. So that's it. That's my critique of it. Love the design, love the look, love the feel. The detent is a little strong for the thumb studs, which is a shame because it opens faster with the thumb studs than it does with the flipper. But for comfort's sake, I think I'm going to just use the flipper and forget that those are there. So not a perfect knife. Not a perfect knife. But it's a really nice, well-crafted knife. How's it cut out the box? I'm going to strop it. It's sharp, but it's not the sharpest knife I've had. It's starting to do a push test. That's actually pretty good. I'm just going to deburr a little bit, put it on the strop, and just clean that edge up a little bit. It's a little toothy. But all in all, I'd give it like 9.5 out of 10. If you want a mid-range, Italian-made, really nice quality titanium frame lock that's, you know, not cheap but doesn't break the bank, give these guys MKM LionSteel, give them a try, man. They got some really nice stuff. Anyway, there you go. That's today's update. Today's review. I decided to treat myself. That's what I got.